Hey everyone, welcome back to I Would Like to Have a Conversation. Ruby, say hello.
Hello.
Theo, say hello.
Hello.
And who am I talking to today?
Matt.
Matt, yes. And what are we talking about? It's a toughie.
Diversity.
Close. Bioenergetics. Yeah, big one. And a bunch of other stuff that Matt's really into. It was a really cool conversation, and it was actually super fun to catch up with Matt. He's a good friend on social media that I met through an incubator, and we're both guidance coaches, and yeah, it was just a fantastic chat. You excited for it?
Yes.
Ready to go to the pool?
Yes.
Let's go swim. See ya!
Another episode of I Would Like to Have a Conversation, and I'm here with Matt. And I met Matt in Nick Huno's incubator, and maybe in a workshop with you before that too. I think we were in a workshop with him as well. But we went to this incubator, and the incubator was about how to become a guidance coach or a guide. And I've been wanting to have this conversation for ages. I don't think I told you that. But one of the big reasons is, we were just talking about it before, but your capacity to feel everyone's emotions, and like it comes across on your face, like you wear it on your sleeve and you really feel what people say. It was like, I think it's like your superpower, and it's just something that I was like, whoa, I'm not really seeing that, like, especially in Australia and the way I grew up. It's very all the stoic-y kind of stuff, which is, we can go into like how detrimental that can be if you go too far that way. But yeah, before we rip into it, like, who are you, Matt? What is it that you do, and where are you in the world at the moment? Because I know you travel a bit.
I'm Matt. I guess that's my identity, my name. No, but I'm 34. I'm from Canada. I'm from Montreal. I'm on the West Coast now in British Columbia. But I'm at heart and a teacher at heart. Like that, those are the two cornerstones of how I show up in the world, and like the two things I never want to stop doing. The two games I never want to stop playing. So I love teaching and I love writing. And I'm moving to Uzbekistan. So I just took a teaching job in Uzbekistan. So I'm off to go on a new adventure. So really excited about that. But
That's cool. Yeah. Where's that for all us ignorant people who have no idea where that is?
Yeah, so I'm going to Tashkent, which is in Uzbekistan, Central Asia. It's near all the stands.
All the stands, yeah.
So all the stands, yeah.
That's pretty cool. So what are you doing in there? Obviously teaching, but what are you teaching?
Yeah, international school teaching English. So yeah, it's just such a teaching great profession. You can just go anywhere and teach anywhere. And kind of, I've got longer term vision of kind of doing more online, but in the interim, this is going to be great to kind of fuel that change. So
yeah. That's wild. How cool is that? How'd that kind of land in your lap? This is like a complete tangent, but that's pretty cool.
Okay, well, this is interesting because it's kind of, so I read the Surrender Experiment recently. Shifted my perspective on it. Kind of helped me to see my choices and my patterns in a different light, and it helped me to say, you know what, I'm not really in control of a whole lot. I'm in control of some things within my own personal life. There's a lot that I'm not in control of, and so this letting go, this kind of exhale, this like, okay, I'm going to kind of follow the path that the universe has planned for me, and stop trying to micromanage every choice and every decision. And so I'm just at the beginning of the Surrender Experiment. So it's taking me to Central Asia. So we'll see how it goes.
That's so cool. Like, I haven't read that book yet, but I know I need to. I've talked about it on this podcast a few times, and when we started going down this path of understanding Theo's stuff, one of the things was like letting go. It's like if you want to have an easier life with autistic kids, it's like flow versus force, letting go, and what it was like it was fun. And then the surrender experience come up a few times, and it's on my list of reads. So it's very like it's in my journaling as well of like just letting go, show up and do the things I need to, and just see where it takes me. People listening will probably like, okay, I'll make this straight. All of the 6 listeners will be will be like, there'll be a fear around that. I reckon it'd be cool to sort of touch on now. Like you're like literally on you go to Uzbekistan, over in the Middle East. And anyone who knows what's going on in the world right now know what's going on in the Middle East right now. So just you surrendering to the idea. Was there fear in there that come up? Talk people through that, because I think that'd be kind of cool. It'd be a good insight.
Yeah. It's funny. There was a kind of excitement and adrenaline rush when I made the decision, or when I surrendered to the decision, because it was really an offer that came to me. Like I wasn't actively searching for it, but I was kind of open to invitations, and I received this invitation, and I said, you know what, this is where I'm needed, so I'll go do this. And then a few days later, yeah, a lot of fear came up, and it's been interesting. Processing fear is a very interesting thing. Of it arises. It seems to like want to call the shots, or it's very it's just very in your face, and but I think facing it is really like one of my core values is courage, and so like courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Courage means bravely confronting fear when it arises. And so I to me it was like, okay, like fear is an opportunity. So this emotion is an opportunity to push beyond what I've normally like my comfort zone and my emotional comfort zone. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the core value of courage. Mine's that as well. And like the flow switch I have is like rise up when I have like that gut check moment, and I'm like, whether I like my bound nature is like escape, and then free nature is like, right, let's go kind of thing. But like we were touching on it before we started. I'm curious, like, did it just land in your lap like really recently? Because you were kind of touching on, you could go into it a little bit too, where you have like a bit of a rough patch there for a bit, and you're kind of coming out of it now, which I want to dive into that as well. But did it come before or after that?
It kind of came after that. So yeah, a big part, as you mentioned, like I'm quite like empathic or sensitive, so I pick up on emotions, and so connections are really important to me. And so I'm a teacher, so the summer rolls around, school's out. There's this initial euphoria of like freedom and exploration and possibility, and then there's we were in the incubator as well, and the incubator wrapped up. And so like both of these sources of meaning and connection and belonging in my life kind of lapsed. They kind of reached an end, and I was just in this space of like, oh man, like I didn't realize how much I was relying on these connections to show up as my best self. And I think it's something that it's an insight that I've taken from this experience, which is like the interdependence, how interdependent we are. Like we're not single, isolated entities. We are part of a fabric of a larger whole, and that has been a big takeaway for me from this. But so yeah, it kind of and it comes in waves, right? Like it's kind of riding these waves of like euphoria. I'm traveling through the Rockies. I'm sleeping in my car. I'm on this grand adventure. And then this kind of low state, this low affect of like, oh man, I don't have those connections anymore. And my pattern is really interesting. Like I end up going into like avoidance. So like I'll like withdraw from the world and be like, no, like I like, which is the opposite of what is healthy and beneficial for me, right? Which is just reestablishing those connections. So it's so great to be able to see myself and my patterns, my behavior, and kind of know. And that's that deeper awareness, I think, right? Of like just kind of being able to witness the ego, being able to witness that person or that and see them and see what they need and see what they.
I think that's like a powerful thing for people to hear, especially like the better word, the concept of the tribe. Because I'm the same. Like when, not so much recently, but what I would do was always fall back into my cave and just hide away, and then you're just sort of stuck in that spiral of just feeling shit, really. And then it used to be my coping mechanism, and then it would take so long to come back out. And this is where like this whole bound nature, free nature thing is to make me switch out from that to stay connected. Because it's been like those connection points with you guys in the incubator, with Nick this year, the King's Crew group that I'm in, all that kind of stuff has opened up so many doors that I didn't even know were there because I was just too busy sitting in a dark cave. So I kind of look at that idea of like having that connection with the tribe of whoever. There can be multiple tribes for different things, but sort of shines a light in like a dark room. It's like, hey, it's cool. You can come through this way. It's always like a natural. I don't know if everyone does it, but it's very natural for me just to step away, move away, because I feel like I don't want to put a burden on people when I feel like I'm in a meh state. Do you kind of feel the same thing?
Yeah, I love the last part there, like not wanting to burden people, which is weird because people are like the people that you and I know now are like the most supportive, people you could ever meet, right? Like they would have no problem being like, oh man, like let's hop on a call, like let's connect, let's work through this, which is such a blessing to have those people in your life, right? It's just such a gift. So yeah, I feel like I'm getting better and better at identifying the kind of catalysts for those kind of downswings, and also getting out of them more quickly. Like I feel like there's just more, like there's no shame or guilt, or there's very little of that. There's just a lot more of like, okay, let's take care of you, let's take care of your needs, and like let's get back into like the upswing of like operating at your peak and being, because like that's when I'm most of service to others, is when I'm taking care of myself and in a really good spot, mentally, emotionally, physically. So
yeah, I actually had this conversation with a mum last night around the same thing. It's like, using the lens of parents, we sacrifice ourselves in service of the family. But we all know, all parents know, that we need to look after ourselves first to be the most effective parent anyway. And it's literally like that battle in their heads that they just constantly have, backwards and forwards, nonstop, all the time. It's like, I know I need to look after myself, but I've got to do this for the family. And it's just that constant to and froing. I think it nearly happens with everybody. But yeah, like the whole, as wanky as the saying is, the whole filling your own cup before you can fill anyone else's, or putting your own oxygen mask on when you're on the plane before you put on anyone else's. It's so true. And we know it. And it's just so hard for a lot of people to do, which I find super interesting to have those conversations, because when they say it out loud, they're like, huh. And that moment of like, oh shit. And there was something you said was like, the crew we're in now, the tribe, the incubator group. You said like, it's cool, we can jump on a call with anyone of those people and just connect and just unpack shit. And when you said it, it just immediately popped in my head. It's like, I haven't been doing that. And there's been moments where I've been probably should have. And I'm like, why haven't I done that? And that's why I wanted to bring it up. Like, we know the things we need to do. And it's kind of like there's Dan John where he talks about it works so well, we stopped doing it. It's kind of like, it's like that weird human nature thing. So it just made me remember it now. I'm literally going to start like, I need to book in with a couple of this cool crew that we have and just chat again, because I haven't been doing it. I was like, what was the thing that was missing? And it was that. And thanks for bringing it up, because it literally just popped in my head. I was like, oh yeah, that's the thing I've been neglecting. I haven't been just chatting, unloading, not unloading, but just like those open conversations that we all have, which is cool.
Yeah,
it's not really a question, but I was just brain dumping.
No, that's beautiful. What comes up for me is just the need and the like the insatiable need that everyone has to be reminded of these things. Like, you just said it, like, it works so well that we forget to do it, or it works so well that we stop doing it. Like, and that's why there's such a craving in the online space for just that continual nudging and encouraging and inspiring, and like, you can say the same thing 1,000 times, it doesn't matter, because it's just, we as human beings, we just I think it was Alex Hormozy who's like, we need to be reminded more than we need to be taught. Like, we come across these amazing ideas, brilliant insights, we do all this cool stuff, and then we forget, or we fall back, or we get caught up in something else. And yeah.
On that, like, one of the, like, another superpower you have is your writing. Were you always awesome at writing, or was it like just a learned skill? What is the power? Teach your secrets.
Well, I mean, speaking of writing, like, you've written some, your writing has moved me, seriously, in a serious way. But I've always written. When I was young, I used to collect words in a book. I'd collect words and the definitions, and I would just like, almost like, some kids collect rocks or butterflies or whatever. I was collecting my words, reading a lot. I was read to a lot, and then, university, I studied English literature, read a bunch of great books, wrote a bunch of essays, and there's just this hankering that I have to just continually express myself through words that I don't think will ever go away. It's just a kind of inbuilt, Robert Greene calls them like primal inclinations. It's just like this primal inclination that I have to, like, oh my God, idea. Okay, I just need to write this down. I need to, like, reshape it. So like I've written. So I wrote a poem every day for a year. So I wrote 365 poems, and the first 50 or 100 poems were shit. They were just garbage. But then I was reading a lot of poetry. I was writing it, and they slowly started to get better. And finally, by the end of the year, some of them actually looked like poetry. And so, yeah, it's just this. I don't know. If you look at my notes on my phone, it's just, you can scroll for like hours on my notes. It's just like ideas that pop in, and I need to capture them and like polish them and change them. So yeah,
it's pretty cool. So it's like, the big takeaway from that for me is like 365 days. It's like that put in the consistent work in a way that's enjoyable, which was probably already enjoyable anyway, but it gets better over time. And like, was talking with Todd just before, because we recorded another episode before this, and we were talking about the same thing. He mentioned something about his business, and he used the words of like, I have high expectations and I want to get there fast. And it just was like in my head, I was like, oh, like, what if we just push the finish line out longer? And you just showed up every day doing the thing anyway. It's such a key thing, because I've gone into and purchased like writing courses, because I write like I talk, like a bogan Aussie. So that's literally how I put stuff on paper. And I'm like, I probably should learn to write better. And I think it's more like I just need to, because I fall out of habit with writing and then get back into it. Like I journal every day about the social media writing. I need to, it's like that, your 365-day challenge of like writing a poem every day. Just like the morning pages kind of thing, like getting back into just stream of thought and taking snippets out of it, which is super cool. I wanted to touch on, you mentioned it before. I think I'm going to butcher it, but I think I got it right. But bioenergetics. Is that what you said? Yeah. So tell me more about this. Like I'm going to play completely ignorant. I got a bit of an idea on it because I remember I studied it a little while ago, but it's completely left my brain since kids. But can you explain what it is for people and how you're kind of using it?
Yeah. So bioenergetics, I guess you can trace it back to Alexander Lowen, maybe even Wilhelm Reich before that. But just this idea that there's like there's a life force. The body is energy. So bio, life, energetics is energy. Like your life energy is, you know, I mean, that's what we're made of. We're made of energy, right? At the end of the day, like physicists will be like, yep, that's true. Like it's not woo woo or anything. And so bioenergetics, there's a bunch of different kind of modalities and practices, but I, studied with Daniel Bradley, who's on X. He's very, very popular and very active on X. He, very graciously and generously offered to have a bunch of us do a free kind of 4-week program with him. And so I learned all kinds of practices to basically de-armor the body. So the theory behind this is that we have we grow up and we build we have emotions and we repress them or we don't express them, and they kind of get trapped or stored in the body and in what are called holding patterns, right? And so for me, like tight shoulders, tight back, poor posture, these kinds of things get kind of like thoughts and feelings that aren't communicated or processed. They get stuck. So those exercises were really helpful in figuring out for me, like my breathing was very shallow. Just baseline breathing was very shallow. Just anxiety, rigidity, all that stuff that started to dissipate after doing these exercises. And then I came across TRE through Brian Meyerhofer, who's a legend, right? We had a masterclass with him, and this is like little sidebar here is just like I'm learning so much from all these people I've met through this platform, right? Like it's just opening up so many different worlds that are so inspiring, right? It's so enlivening. But back to TRE. So TRE is basically, there's a tremor mechanism in the body. You start to activate it, and you are able to kind of take out a lot of those holding patterns. And you can do it consciously, like I am doing right now, like with the shoulders, but it becomes this kind of involuntary movement that really lets go of a lot of tension. And if you have trauma, it lets go of a lot of trauma. So I've had a few experiences where I had major releases of old trauma. So like I was back to being a boy, arms out, like, hey dad, there's a lot of trauma that kind of emerged and was released. So you feel like you've just taken off a 40-pound backpack. You're kind of loose, and you're like, oh, I'm not holding on to that anymore. So that's kind of a primer for bioenergetics. Sorry to ramble about that, but I'm really passionate about it. So
because I remember seeing a
Yeah.
video you put up on X. I might even share it down in the show notes afterwards if I can find it. But it was you going through that tremor, and you recorded yourself doing it and what it looks like.
Yeah.
And someone who wouldn't know what that is or what it feels like would look at that and just freak out, I reckon. Like, what would you say to someone who's like looking at that for the first time and would be like, what is that?
I guess my first impression, if I didn't know about this and I saw someone doing that, would be like, they're having an exorcism, right? There's like demons that are being exorcised. That's what it looks like. And in some sense, there is some amount of like symbolic truth there of like the demons being trauma and stress and tension, and the release being like letting go of those things on an energetic level. But yeah, I would just to someone who is seeing that skeptical, and maybe I would just say, like, don't judge it until you have tried it. It's very safe. Millions of people do it, and it can seriously change your life and wake you up to what your body is capable of in its restful, relaxed state.
I think, like you said, yeah, don't be skeptical. A lot of people, I sort of think of like my circle of influence locally here. Like you said, like it releases the tension and all that kind of stuff. It's almost, throwing this out very broadly, it's almost like in Australia, we use that as a badge of honor. Like the tension we carry, the weight of stuff. The Aussie Bachelor is literally like our slogan. So it's kind of one of those things where that landing in Australian culture would be like, not really. But it's kind of, it's those kinds of like experiences which opens the door to a completely another world. To like, I can't think of what I'm trying to say, but it's like I'm picturing people listening to this and like, this is woo-woo shit. I'm not going to do that. And it's kind of like trying to crack that shell of like, hey, we get it. Like, we know what it looks like. But hey, have you heard the story of Matt who went through it? And this is the stuff he felt. Where it's kind of like, there's a lot of woo-woo stuff in the world that actually work. It's just got to, like you said, let go and lean into it and give it a try. And so it's just like a fear of like, tell me what you think, but I reckon it's probably like a fear of losing control, which is probably the biggest block that people need to get through anyway, where we technically don't have a lot of control anyway.
And exactly. And I've guided several men through this process, and the ones that learn it right away are the ones who aren't afraid of losing control, or who understand that there's not a lot of control that we have in the first place, and that control is an illusion of the ego in some large part. But and then the ones who couldn't get it, because you're activating an involuntary bodily response. It's not, you're not controlling it. And the ones who couldn't get it were the ones who were kind of the most resistant to letting go. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's no judgment. Like, it just shows where there's work to be done if you want to do that work, I think. So
yeah. Because it's like, I've never done it, so we'll have to hook up and see if we can do it. Can you do it via virtual?
For sure, yeah. I've guided guys through. I call it mindful tension release. So it's my own kind of formulated combination of release and breath work.
Yeah,
so I
cool.
can totally we'll get on a call and I'll guide you through some stuff. It'd be really fun.
Because it'd be cool. Because it'd be cool to even do like a follow up. Like we go do that. I'll come back and like this is what it felt like, and this is what I got from it. And I would think like when you said it was like involuntary release, I would think it's kind of like the brain gets in the way. They're thinking too much to try and make it kick in, and they're just like, I can't do it. I always picture like, forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's trying to teach him how to surf.
Oh yeah.
Do less.
Exactly. Do less. No. Well, you have to do something. So you can't just lie there.
I keep thinking of that.
Amazing.
We just say that to people. You're like, it's like you got to do less. And they're like, I don't get what you mean.
You can't just lie there. You gotta do something.
That'd be my thing. You'd be like, do less. You'd be like, okay, and then I'll just start snoring straight away. And I'll be out.
Hey, that's releasing stress too, right? So
yeah, it's true. So that's really cool. And I think like, because that's the stuff like I've gone through for myself, like through psychology and the mindset coaching, all those tools, and now guidance as well, where I'm trying to get these tools to plug gaps that I have. Like, because I started as a health and fitness coach, and all the things I've learned, a lot of it was to help me, but it was also to help to, sounds really weird, but to get clients to want to do the things we're asking them to do. So it becomes their thing. It sounds really bad. I'm not trying to like be sketchy and persuade them and hypnotize them, but it's kind of like you helping them to want to do it so they don't need to rely on people to do it anymore. That kind of thing. That's what all the tools I've been trying to get. So those tools you picked up, what were you trying to get them for? That's a weird question, but what were you wanting to learn them for? What gaps were you trying to fill, I guess?
Honestly, I think curiosity played a big part. Just pure childlike curiosity of like, what is this? What would this feel like? How would this be like? And then with Daniel Bradley, it was kind of, hearing him, talking with him. He's just such an embodied, mature masculine presence in the world that it was like, oh, like this is what I want to reflect in my own life. This is how I want to show up in the world. So that kind of was that was the hook for me, was just his presence and his how he communicates. And then once I started dabbling in that world and experimenting with those tools, it was like, oh, there's just a different way of showing up in the world. There's just a different way of carrying yourself and relating to yourself. And a super common problem that men have is that they're very much caught up in their head and problem solving. Like men will literally create problems to solve in their mind, right? They're just like, you're just creating more and more problems to solve them in this never-ending loop if you don't kind of short circuit that. And I've seen this a lot with just virtually every man I've ever encountered. And like once you bring your awareness and attention into the body, you slow down, you get comfortable in who you are, and a lot of positive changes start to happen. And I was hooked. This is a way out of the kind of the thinking mind.
Okay, I like that. And yeah, I 100% agree. Men are we are problem solvers by nature. So we just keep finding things to try and solve. So I know you work with men mostly. through those kinds of things, helping them basically, I think, kind of like reconnect with themselves and find like a calmness. This is the word I keep coming back to. Where for a long time I was just like, my brain was just rush. Like and it's like putting things in place, and it's taken time, but yeah, putting things in place to actually understand what calm is. And I didn't know what it was. I thought I was calm and I thought I was pretty chill and all that kind of stuff. And like this year, I'm like, oh no, I definitely was not calm. And there's still moments when I'm like, I'm probably still not as calm as or present or as chilled as I could be. It's a work in progress. That's working. And it's kind of, do you kind of agree? It's like a lot of men don't know what calm is and can't hold space for themselves to even feel it at all. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say I've seen that, and I agree with that. And I think it's a very, crucial tool to learn how to rest and find calm. Because I mean, burnout is when you can't find that. Burnout is when you become so obsessed with solving problems that you can't recover, and it's just like any kind of sport or any kind of race or anything. Like you just need to dial it back sometimes and find that deep rest. And that was one of the things too. Like I was a big fan, and I still am a big fan of Andrew Huberman and all of the kind of protocols that he set forth, and non-sleep deep rest, yoga nidra. That changed my life. I started doing that 15 minutes a day of just deep rest, body scan, and you show up differently. You show up. Your nervous system becomes regulated so that the people around you, your family, your friends, your colleagues, in my case, my students, like they can be at rest because you're at rest. Like when you're hyper vigilant and hyperactive in fight or flight, everyone around you feels that. Like the energy permeates your environment, and like it's kind of like this is a kind of tangent a little bit, but like I have it's very easy for me to care about other people deeply, and it's hard for me to care and love myself deeply. So that's kind of my work in progress, right? But that kind of is leverage for me to be like, I want to show up as a calm, centered, present human being in front of others, so that they can feel that, so that they can feel at ease, so that they can feel calm. It's a gift you can give. It's the same idea of like God talking about like change yourself, like be the change you want to see in the world. Like, well, I want more calm, and I want more compassion, and I want more gratitude in the world. So like I'll start here, and hopefully that will ripple, right? I love the analogy of the ripple. It's a big part of my life philosophy.
There was you mentioned the word masculine, and this can be a trigger for a lot of people, and I wouldn't mind diving into that a little bit. Like I think there's like a negative connotation to the word masculine. How would you describe, I guess, like a very pure masculinity in your eyes? So
yeah,
it's not sort of like not throwing stones, but like not like the Andrew Tatey kind of world view of what people think masculinity is, and when we talk about it, that's what we're talking about. I don't think it's like that. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I see masculinity as the word that comes to mind is generative, and again, I'm borrowing this from Brian Meyerhofer, but this idea that you are building or creating or providing for others beyond yourself. So there's you're useful, productive, and helpful to those around you. I think that's a big part of masculinity. I've done a deep dive on this, like both the anthropology of it and the psychology of it. But if you look at someone like Andrew Tate, he is useful, he's helpful, he do those around him. But that's what happens is there's a shadow element there of control and desire for power, and for gain, right? So it's tricky. It's a hard question. I think the culture has, by putting toxic next to the word masculinity, it toxifies masculinity. I think that combination of words is detrimental to the culture, and I think toxic masculinity is not masculinity. So I think masculinity, in fact, is the healthy, productive. It's the king, governing his kingdom fairly and equitably, so that everyone can prosper. And if the kingdom isn't prospering, the king is not doing well. So I see it as really transpersonal. I think masculinity in its healthiest form.
I got the same as you, because I remember I was journaling about it. I was like, what is it? And the group I'm in, King's Crew, which is the men's group, the reason why it's called King's Crew is because it's to use the core values of a king, like what you just said. And I use like the core values and the attributes of a knight, being noble and honesty and loyal, all those things which I think are like the powerful tools that come along with masculinity. I was going to say the good side, but that is just masculinity. Like you said, whatever's not that is not being a pure masculine man. That was another thing I was going to bring into that as well. It was like, I've lost it though. I think that's it. Like, my thing ended up coming back to, like, especially for me as being a husband, was like, be the man your wife wants to date again. Like, when I wrote that down, the things I wrote down afterwards was like, cool. So this is like how I'm being useful. This is how I'm showing up. This is how I'm doing all these things to lighten the mental load for Kat. So it sounds really weird, but it probably doesn't sound weird, but it's kind of like she sees me as as that person that she wants to date, like that first connection point when you do get together and you're dating all the time and you're hanging out watching movies and all that kind of shit. That's the stuff that we try and keep bringing through all the time, where we want to have those connection points. I think when I want to talk to, like with Space Builders, what we're doing is when we talk to the dads is to reclaim that intimacy by being the man your wife wants to date, being the dad your kids just want to hang out with, and being that useful to the tribe. And it ticks all those 3 boxes. And that could be different for everyone and what that looks like on their own personal values and stuff, I think, which I think is cool. So like we're telling you, like, this is the masculine template, and if you don't line to this, you're not masculine. It's kind of like everyone would have their kind of own version of it, of what being useful would look like, because everyone's got different tools. And I think for any of those 6 listeners listening, they'll be like, when it's like asking yourself those questions, like, how do you want to show up in the world? How do you want to be useful to the tribe, or whatever your tribe is? Kind of starts creating those stories in your brain, or those questions that you want to start solving, which is like going back to like where we're just trying to solve 2 big problems, but it's putting those things in place and seeing you where you are showing up and where you're not, and where to fix the gap, which I think is like what you're so good at, is where people can come to you and jump on a call like this and just have a real deep conversation and just let it flow. And you're good at like discerning the stuff that comes out, and you can pick the thing that probably needs to be talked about to bring out more conversation. I reckon that, like, even when we did it in the incubator and we did it together, it was short and sweet. It was still really powerful in like even this short little window, which was really cool. There's something I do want to touch on. I did say this earlier before we started. There's an image of you that every time I think of you, that comes up. It was you at a festival, and it was behind a lady on the ground, and you were standing there, arms out. I think you had wings on, and it's a super powerful photo. It gives me the giggles every time, because every time I see it, I'm like, that is 100% Matt that I know of. So I always think about it, but you're a super spiritual dude in that sense. I think. Do you want to go into that a little bit, like your spirituality part, which people might get turned off by it or not, but I don't really care. I think of it as like spirituality is different for everybody, and everyone's got their own different version of it. And I do actually believe everyone's got some kind of spirituality piece. It's just they call it something else. But yeah, that image of you, that lights me up every time I see it. It's so funny because it's just so you. It just makes me laugh. I'm like, it's cool. So talk a bit about like that, the spirituality, that image in itself, like how that came about. And I remember we talked just after you went to that festival, which was even funnier.
Yeah, that was a wild festival. So a little bit of context for what was happening in that picture.
Yeah, I'll share it later.
Yeah, I'm at this festival, and okay, great. I last minute I was asked to participate in this erotic theater performance, which was a reenactment of the story of Osiris and Isis, and Osiris gets kind of dismembered into a bunch of different pieces and strewn about, and then Isis, I believe, goes around and reclaims them and like reassembles him. So that was kind of the process of my reassembly, and I was it was really cool because I'd been really deep into masculine psychology and like the king, embodying the king, and so there I'm sitting as Osiris on this golden throne with like women kind of being like waving me and sitting there and being like, my internal dialogue was like, okay, so how would a king act in this situation? And it's like, well, a king would just survey his kingdom silently and like stoically, and so that's kind of what I was doing. And but it was it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Isis, I had some fun chats with Isis after too. But with spirituality, there's I'm very much of the very much syncretic, I guess, or just like I like to. I was really interested in Buddhism and meditation for a very long time. I did, some Vipassana meditation, so the 10-day meditation retreat. And then I was interested in Christianity, but kind of more like esoteric Christianity, like Gnosticism, stuff like that. Like just like this insatiable curiosity to explore like Sufism, like Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, and then seeing how they all kind of interrelate and what the kind of overlapping principles are, and then just kind of holding those close to my heart of like kindness, like we are in this world but not of it, and we, it's our job to have open hearts and try to be the light for others. And so that's kind of how I see it. I don't get I get a bit frustrated with really spiritual conversations of like just very heady, like we are all oneness, the universe is love. Like maybe I'm not at that level yet. Maybe that's just a level of attainment that I haven't reached yet. Who knows? But like I'm a bit more I think I'm a bit more grounded and heart-centered, and if the spirit is up here and the soul is at the root, like I think I'm closer to the soulfulness of it than I am to the kind of let's go take acid and fly around the universe.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same, because I grew up in like a Catholic and Baptist house when my mum was deep Catholic, my dad was deep Baptist. So it was a crazy ride until I got to teenage years, and then I just went full atheism. It's only now where I'm like kind of opening the door again to, like you said, learning the principles and just taking the things I like and rewriting it into a way that actually makes sense to me. And then, like, I think one, like BG, the mindset coach that I have, he was like, just call it Gus. God, universe, spirituality. Like, just call it Gus.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be anything else. And it's kind of like, it helps with that part of letting go, I think. Where you're giving over to, well, like even Stephen Pressfield in the book Turning Pro, like he talks about it as the muse, like giving over to the muse, which is what I used to call it for ages. Like, I'm just giving myself over to the muse. I would say it, but I don't know if I actually was doing it or not. But it's an interesting combo in the sense, because like our kids are baptized so they could go to a Catholic school, and Kat is like full atheist. Like, does not believe it, does not like talking about it. And when the kids bring it home and talk about it, she's like, talk to your dad about it. And I go through the whatever scripture stuff is that I want to talk about and try and explain it, extrapolate it into like a meaningful thing for them. It's kind of like there's so many, I guess what I'm getting around to is like there's like polarized topics with this stuff. I think you sort of said the same thing, like grounded. I'm Switzerland. I like sitting in the middle. I like taking the bits from the really like that way and and sort of using the whatever I need useful to help me get through whatever the thing is that I'm trying to get through, which sounds similar to kind of like what you said. There's a bit of a tangent we went on, but I think it kind of ties into you and that kind of person you are. Because really, like, what I wanted out of this is just to have a really good conversation with you again, which is what we had, but also for people other people listening in, to hear what it's like to have a conversation with you, so they can come to you to unpack shit, I guess, or just have a good combo about spirituality, masculinity, bioenergetics, all that kind of stuff, which is like a really cool combination of tools that you have and uniqueness that allows you to help people unpack stuff. So we've got to wrap it up. So I want to make sure you can leave people off with something. What would be a big takeaway for people, or what's something you want to like mic drop on people? I'm putting you on the spot, but a mic drop on people before we wrap up.
Mic drop.
How to find you. No pressure.
Oh man. Okay, mic drop. I don't know, advice, like I'm wary of giving advice. I guess what comes to mind is that Carl Jung quote that I'm gonna butcher of like, the tree can't grow to the sky if the roots don't grow to hell, or something to that extent, of just embracing embracing the ebbs and flows of life, and this is very much what I'm present with, of like witnessing my life story and how it's unfolding, and finding peace and solace in the moments where I'm like, yes, this is part of the story. This is part of the experience. So to any men who are struggling, to any men who are disconnected or feeling anxious or feeling lonely, to make the best effort to find that solace. And if you can't, reaching out to someone. And even if that feels like a Herculean task of actually reaching out to someone, please reach out to someone. Is my kind of what I would want to say to every man who's on the planet.
Yeah. I like it. That was good. And then how can they find you? What's the best way to find you?
Yeah, so I'm on X at Men Who, and I'm focusing all my energy onto that being is there, and working on some writing for kind of inner work based on some of the work that you and I did. So that'll be coming relatively soon. I'm gonna give some giveaways, like a free mini course soon. So just to see how people respond and what people actually want. So that will come. So
I like that. That'd be cool.
And also just immense gratitude for you, my friend.
Oh, thanks, man.
immense gratitude, and yeah, like I got a little bit emotional too, just kind of, knowing about your story and knowing about what you're going through, or what you're making happen in the world. It inspires me beyond measure to make a difference too, and just a lot of love for you, man.
Thanks, dude. Love fest. The I'll put in the show notes how to get in contact with Matt, so you can reach out to him. As soon as that mini course drops, I'll go back and add it into the show notes too, for anyone who watches it in the past or in the future. Even that doesn't make any sense. In the future, they can go back to find that mini course. But yeah, definitely go. Like we sort of touched on, social media gets a bad rap on certain platforms. If you can get on X and get around the people you want to be around, and you can filter out all the noise, it is a very powerful place to be. Like, that's the only one I hang out on now. I go do stuff on the other socials, so that's where I go talk to people. Then X is where I create the connections and learn and read your stuff, which is amazing reading. But if anything, go read that shit. Great. Yeah. Awesome combo, man. Thanks everyone for jumping on. Like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff. Go follow Maddie on X. And yeah, tune in next week. See you guys.
Sweet, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.